Okay, so we started Siman Tzadik Aleph, Din Basar V'cholav Shenit'arvu. They got mixed up. Various ways that they can get mixed up. We covered Sif Aleph and Sif Beis. And today we'll do a little bit of a review and go on to just Sif Gimel. Sif Dalet is already something completely different because then it talks about Hat Basar, Hat Cholav. And of course the dinim change. Then we are introduced to a different concept called Tator Govar, which requires a shir in itself. So now let's just go over some of the nekudas that we did last time. When Basar and Cholav are placed next to each other, even though the two of them are tzoinin, the two of them are cold, nevertheless, one of them can rub off onto the other. Especially when one of them is moist. Obviously, if the two of them are dry, cheese and meat, then there's less chances of that happening. But when there is moisture, some of it can rub off, the pieces can be absorbed, and that presents a problem, of course, of basar b'cholav. And this is also true with Isser and Heter. In any way, where the two of them are in close proximity, there may not be bishul, there may not be that much of Isser, but there's still going to be something. And whenever there's going to be something, we are concerned at least in a lechatchila. At least lechatchila. B'diavad, yes, it's true. B'diavad, if something like this were to happen, the chances are high that you may have something called bitul, or you may not even have an issue to begin with, depending on the circumstances. Yes, but there still is a din of lechatchila. Whenever the Chachomim told us that something is also lechatchila, but maybe mutar b'diavad, is because of a chashash. Sometimes it's a chashash, and they were goizer, not to do certain things because you may come to do the real Isser, or it may lead to the real Isser. So here, when Basar and Cholav may be close to each other, there may be a need for hadacha. Even though the Gemara says you can bundle them up together, and you can take them with you on a trip and so forth, it's assuming that they're not touching each other. In other words, they're in the same bundle, the same package. You're not allowed to put them close to each other. But what happens if they did? Well, if they did, they may require hadacha. What's hadacha? Hadacha means that not too much was absorbed, just a little bit perhaps came off on the surface, and that has to be removed. It's just like any other Isser. Hadacha is one of the least or the most lenient forms of tikkun, if we can call it that, being mesaken something other than bitul. Bitul means it's cancelled, it's gone, it is null, right? It is as though it does not exist because of the sheer amounts. Whereas hadacha or klipa or greda, shifshuf, all the forms of removing any vestige, deals with a be'ain that I can somewhat identify, even though I can't see it, I know it's there, or I suspect it's there. And the Chachamim therefore required that, they may have required, I should say, hadacha or shifshuf, whenever they felt there was a chance it picked up a little bit, even though you don't see it. Whereas by klipa, we actually make the assumption that some of the Isser was actually absorbed into the heter, it just didn't go so far. And we have no choice but to remove the klipa. So whenever klipa is used, but we will see that even in klipa there is a klipa mi'ikar adin, and there's a klipa that is more of a chumrah. Klipa mi'ikar adin, we're saying that there is, like by irui, it all depends on the era, but it could have gone in so much. So on Shabbos, it's a form of bishul, even though it was not mevashel the whole thing, it was mevashel a little bit, and that's a problem. Even though in Rosh Shabbos there are shiurim too, how much you need to carry outside, how much you need to cook, and so forth. But lechatchila for sure you don't do things like that. Even if it's a chatzi shir, even if it's less than a chatzi shir, lechatchila no. So here too, even though all it is a little bit that it may be picking up, no, it's asur. But if it happens, we can get away with it in that only hadacha may be required because the negia was betzoinen. The negia did not involve any heat, therefore very, very little may have been transferred, and that's all that would be required. Now this din of hadacha that we've learned does not only apply with food items that are close to each other, that rub off on each other and so forth, it could also be in kelim. There are various halachas, of which we will talk about some today, where if a keli is asur, if a knife is treif, for whatever reason it's treif, it could be your own knife that has become treif, or it could be a knife from a goy that is treif to begin with because of the use before. You cannot use it lechatchila to cut something cold. You have a knife in the house? Oh, I need a knife right now. That's treif. What would be required to fix that knife, to use it in applications of tzonin? Something called ne'itza bekarka. Depending on the knife, depending on perhaps the isser, besides cleaning it, ne'itza bekarka is something very unique to knives. And we briefly explained before, I'm not sure you were here, that it involves sticking it in the ground in 10 different locations. Somewhat of a hard ground. That accomplishes what we need. Are you familiar with that? I mean, you've gone through parts of Yore Deah, so you've seen that concept of ne'itza bekarka. So in order for me to use temporarily, or even permanently, depending, a keli that is treif, I cannot do it. Sometimes I can, we will see, unless I'm metakin it, And if it was not done, because it's tzoinen, well, I may still need to do hadacha. A keli does not have anything if it's clean. A keli that is also, what does it have? That I'm putting something in it, why should there be ever a problem putting something in it temporarily if the keli is clean? What do we say? Nothing can come out if it's tzoinen. Any blias or plitas that are going to come out can only come out if there is heat, being, in other words, which transfers that which has been absorbed in metal and possibly in clay, not in glass. With glass, it's much more lenient. You can just clean it up and you're okay. With clay, it's a bigger problem. With metal, obviously, because it requires hagala or libel, depending on what it is, it's for sure going to come out with heat. So, if it's tzoinen, if the scenario is cold, what could be the problem? The problem could be that if there's moisture, maybe it will pick up something that may still be there. It's not ever, we're never going to think, we're never going to assume, we're not saying that the tzoinen food that I'm temporarily putting into this spot is actually drawing off from doifna keli. That we're never saying. Elamai, we did explain that the only hechetimtza, the only possibility is that there may be something there. It's not mudach or mekurach yof. It's not cleaned well. It will pick up something from the surface. If it's moist, it can do that. If it's yovish, it won't do that. There was a chashash. The chachamim were always concerned. Now, it's not only that. It's more than that too, because that's a din of b'di'evet. What if I see it's clean? You still have to do hadacha. You know what's the bigger problem? The bigger problem is you can't do this on a regular basis, even if you're going to wash it. First of all, you may forget to wash. You may forget to make hadacha. I'm going to make hadacha anyway. No, you may forget to make hadacha, but that's not the bigger problem. The bigger problem is as it's stated in Siman Kuf Chof Aleph, that you may come to cook in this spot. You may take it one step further. You may forget completely. Oh, that's a whole different story. You don't want to leave a treif keli in your home. To fix it, lehavdil, a treif, lehavdil. A Sefer Torah which is possible shouldn't be sticking around. You have a Sefer Torah in the urn, that's no good. Take it out, put it somewhere else, or make a big siman again. Or fix it right away. You're going to read from it. You're going to make a bracha levatal on it. Yeah, similar idea. Lehavdil. Right? It's not good. You can't use it. So we learned that in the Mechaber that anything that requires hadacha, for example, and his example was to put something tzoinen in the Nekar Shal Iser, tzoinen, is also lechatchila. So that halacha is clear. And what's the reason for it? The simple reason, because you may eat it beli hadacha. Very simple. However, he finishes up, of course, if something is you're going to make hadacha to it anyway, like raw meat, then you're okay because you're not going to forget to do hadacha. And even then, we said that this is only on a temporary basis. Even if we allow you to do it, because there's going to be hadacha, we do not allow you to do it on a permanent basis. Now, there was a few differences between the Shach, the Taz, and the Ramah as to if the keli is hot or if the keli is cold. Not the keli right now. In other words, if it absorbed through heat or if it absorbed through cold. The Ramah seems to make a difference because he says, and this is, by the way, the Mechaber too later on, and everybody else pretty much agrees that if the two items would be yovish and no lachluchis, and everything is cold, it would be mutar lechatchila even. Nobody would have any problem with it. Everything is yovish, right? Everything is cold. It was absorbed through cold. Okay? Nobody would seem to have a problem with it. The differences begin to occur when one of them is lach, or as the Ramah says, it's not only lach, he makes a distinction if the keli itself absorbed through heat. Somehow, and the Shach doesn't understand, even though the Taz goes along with it, somehow there's a difference if the keli absorbed through heat the first time around or not. So far we don't see any indication as to what the din of kavush is, but we'll talk about that later. What happens if the keli absorbed through kavush, not through heat, not cold, kavush. There is a din, by the way, Ramah, I think later on, does say that even though something is used ordinarily cold, if there is a suffix that at one time it may have been used with hot, then you make a gala to it. This is an hechsher kelen. You want to know how to make it? You want to know how do we take this treif keli and make it kosher? Well, you bought it from a goy. It requires hagala or libun, depending on how it was used, right? After you're done with that, you take it to the mikveh if it's metal or glass. Now, with glass, you're not going to make hagala or libun, but you're going to take it to the mikveh. That's, by the way, the order of how you would do it. You would first do hagala, take out the treifus, then you would do the tefillah. There's a question of what happens if you did it the other way around. You did the tefillah first, and then you did the hagala. Do you have to do hagala or tefillah again? So some say it doesn't look right. How could you do tefillah to something that is full of blias, of treif? It looks like toivel v'sheretz b'yodai. Somebody going into a mikveh holding on to a sheretz. You know, some say it's okay, but yeah. What? Yeah, some say it's okay, but anyway, but that's the seder. And I always thought that it was interesting that tefillah is first. Hagala, take out the tumor is first, then tefillah. In Hilchas Geras, you find a similar, different idea. A ger that comes to be Megayer, what's the order? There's three things that are required from a ger, a man. Number one, bris. Number two, tefillah. In Kabbalah mitzvahs. What comes first? The bris, not the tefillah.
Yeah, like the hagala.
Exactly. Exactly. Do the bris first. Maybe he'll regret it after he feels the pain of the bris. He says, "Oh no, I don't want this anymore." Had we made him a tefillah, had that done it, the easy water, he's Jewish. No, you go the painful one, the hagala, the libu, the bris. Then you take him to the mikveh of
first.
Yeah, exactly, Mitzrayim, yeah. And you need Kabbalah mitzvahs. What a lot of people do not understand today is how important Kabbalah mitzvahs is. It's mehakev. That's the big machlokes that they're having in Israel today. And how lenient could you be? Yeah. And I don't understand how you could be lenient. I mean, there's people who are lenient. Because his intention is. You have to determine that intention. And if you determine later on that his intention was not, then retroactively he's not Jewish. But that's exactly. So that's where it's a little bit tricky.
If for a moment intention was
exactly. So that's where it's very difficult, and where some are more lenient in that. And obviously, lechatchila, we don't allow somebody to convert because he wants to marry a Jewish girl or a Jewish man or whatever, But with the evidence, it's okay as long as she or he were mekabel the mitzvahs. He or she converted because they want to get married to a Jew. Lechatchila, that's not a worthy or sincere conversion. We don't accept that. You want to be Jewish because you want to be Jewish? Kabbalah says yes. No. But let's say they did it anyway. They didn't tell us or whatever. But they keep the mitzvahs and they mean it. Sometimes they keep the mitzvahs more than the husband who's Jewish. If they do keep it, then it's toifus. Then the gerus is toifus. In other words, it's chal.
It
takes effect. Even though the original motivation was not Kabbalah Satorah. It was marriage. Whatever. Anyway.
Now what if they're already...
Okay. So there's a lot of poskim that couples that are already married, especially if they have kids, they're not going to separate. They both want to become balei teshuvas. They both want to become stronger and more attached. We go ahead and do the gerus for them. No, we go ahead and do the gerus. Yeah, most poskim say go ahead and do it. You know, they're living there.
They're going to raise Jewish.
Exactly, they're going to raise the Jews. They kabbalas mitzvahs. They want to get closer. They're married already. We obviously first separate them for a little while, because they're livetuma, you know, so we separate them, then we bring them back.
Does it make a difference?
No.
Like obey this calculation?
No, not really. They're living together, they're not going to, it's so difficult they're having a good marriage, right? You know, one of them married a goy, they're 25 years married, you know, they come, you know, I want to make her or him Jewish. And he says, yes, I'm being Mekabel, or actually I'm Mekabel everything. And it's true, we look into it, they take courses, and we do it with time, not chick-chack. We do it, you know. These are the exceptions because of the circumstances. That's the problem of Shlomo Melech. What was the problem of Shlomo Melech?
Too many.
All the girls in town, you know, for whatever political reasons he had, to be megayer them. The problem is it wasn't real gerus. It's because of him, Solomon. They're being megayer because it's not because they want to really become Jewish. And that is why he wasn't successful with them. I'm putting it in a good light. He wasn't successful with that. Yeah.
I know a couple before they got remarried.
They did things ultimately very, very good. Very, you know. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Who was the Jewish one?
The husband was
Yeah. But they must have been very strong. Older couple, younger couple?
middle-aged.
Wow. Yeah. That's tough. Yeah. But they meant it. Huh? Are they still together?
Why dress neat? That's what I look at.
All right. Anyway, so this is a whole different sugya. But they're all related. It's Basar b'chalav, right? They shouldn't mix. But yeah.
So it's Taaruvot.
It's Taaruvot, yeah.
It's not two heads come together.
It's not too heter. You're right. Anyway, so what happens in these situations where we were not supposed to use the keli, and we did it anyway, so there's hadacha. What happens if we cooked without hadacha?
We have to touch. I
Right.
apologize for
Okay, go
back to the
ahead.
guest.
All right.
Just a quick question.
Go ahead.
Now, if she's Jewish and he's not, do her as well?
No.
No.
Mother's Jewish, the kids are Jewish.
The husband is.
Yeah. I've had situations where the man is Jewish, the woman is not. She became pregnant. She's in the process of conversion, and the conversion is not going to happen for a while. The baby's already born. The baby's a goy. You know, so we have to go give him the conversion separately. It's too bad, you know. Had the baby been born later, it would have been easy.
Now, if it's still
Makes
not
no
Jewish,
difference.
and then she comes.
Makes no difference. As
And
long as
then
he's
it's
born, the Leda has to be Kedusha.
How about if you have Kabbalah? Does it make a difference? Not Jewish?
It could be, because from the concept of Kabbalah, there's like this. There's a neshama that is inserted into the mother at the time of conception, but the entire tselem, there's more to just the neshama coming in, comes onto the child at the moment he exits the mother's womb. So technically, a goya, a woman who's not Jewish, cannot receive a Jewish neshama from the Jewish pipeline. So here, you know, at the time of conception, she's still a goya. So what's going to be with the child, even though physically, biologically, he's Jewish? I think that because they have the advantage of knowing the time of birth, right? They're able to send a Jewish neshama, despite the fact that she's right now not Jewish, into this mother's womb. And the reason I know that that's possible is because there's a form of Gilgul, a reincarnation, which is rare, that a Jew is reincarnated in a Goy. It usually doesn't happen. Regular Gilgulim is a tikkun for the Jew, and he's usually born into a Jewish family, and it's usually in the same root of the family. But just like there are tikkunim in animals and leaves and plants, temporary, there's also a rare, but it doesn't happen, tikkun in being in a goy, or in a goya, I should say. So it could be, technically, it could happen. But that's a good question, because at the time, the reason why a child of a goya is not Jewish, you know, automatically, is because they don't send neshamas, Jewish neshamas, to the womb of a goya. The mother is the one that carries the baby, not the man, and she's a goya. So which neshama is going to be placed into that pipe, into that womb? No Jewish neshama wants to go to a shiksa. So that's why what she delivers is a goy, from the small, from the sitra achra, not from the side of the kedusha. But in the case where she's converting, it's possible. Another reason why it's possible, because every ger, sincere ger that converts, receives, the Zohar says, what's called the nefesh hager. They have a goy, they have a neshama of a goy. So how could they elevate themselves to the status of a Jew? Spiritually, they receive a nefesh hager. It's a special nefesh.
At which point?
At the time of conversion. Yeah, they receive a nefesh hager. And it's the Kabbalah goes into a very interesting description of how these neshamas of nefesh hager are formed upstairs through the zivug of tzaddikim. It's a very interesting phenomena on how these neshamas, nefesh hager, are formed. They're formed. And that's what gives him the boost of elevating himself to the status of a Jew. Anyway, it's a fascinating area. And when Eliyahu Navi comes, I tell people to forget that Eliyahu Navi has a job too, not just Mashiach. Mashiach has a big job. Eliyahu Navi has another kind of a job and has to sort out all the psulim, the mamzerim, the gerim, the this. He's going to have a big job, but he'll handle it. It's getting tough.
It's tougher each year.
Yeah, but that's his job. All right. So real briefly, what happens nevertheless if we did cook something by mistake with hadacha, it required hadacha, the cheese or the basar. So the Taz says there's no isser. And we explained how to look at this no isser. What do you mean there's no isser? You were supposed to do hadacha. So the Taz says, listen, later on there's a machlokes at poskim, even when there's a klipa required, some say that if you didn't take out the klipa, it's okay. Then kol shekein hadacha. But the Taz doesn't say more than that. Why b'diavad it's mutter? It's understood from him and from others that hadacha is only a chumrah. Well, if it's only a chumrah, okay, we can understand why b'diavad, if you cook that without doing that hadacha, why it's okay. In other words, what are we saying? The Pashup Shad is b'diavad lo chai shinan. We're not concerned that something was nidbak of an iser. That's Pashup Shad. In the Chavas Das, he takes it one step further. He says you have two reasons why. You can say why it's okay b'diavad. First of all, either you say it's a chumrah, or even if you say something did get nidbak, it's probably so small that there's shishim kenegdoi. Remember, this is not even a klipa. This is a hadacha. When we say something requires hadacha, we're already stating that there's maybe a little bit got stopped, but that little bit is so little that it's most likely batul b'shishim. All right. Let me perhaps before we go on, let's go through the Mikor of the machlokes. It's a famous machlokes in Tosos and Psachim about the shochach v'lo yediach. What happens if you forgot and you weren't mediach? We have a famous machlokes, Rabbeinu Tam and Rivo, right? Which we didn't cover. I don't think we covered this last time, so that's what we're. Over there you have a situation of cham letoch tzoinen, which we'll discuss next week. Some hot falling into something cold, where there's a din of tator govar, the one that's in the bottom has more strength than the one that's on top. But it being here that the one that's on top is the hot one, not the one at the bottom, then at the makerle, as it's weighing down on the one at the bottom, all it could do is be mavliya a klipa. Nevertheless, over there it's mashma that since the one on the bottom is liquid, not solid, it's chalav, but the evidence it's mutter. Because how could you take off a klip from the liquid? Right? Even though ordinarily cham letoch tzoinin requires klipa, that's only when you can take off the klipa. But when you cannot take off the klipa, just forget about it. That's how it appears from the lashon of the Gemara in Tosos there. So therefore, it's something that's not shaykh klip like cholav, like milk, it's mutter. Since it doesn't say there anything about that the cholav being asur, it doesn't say anything. So that's what we assume. Because by the basar it does say yet you remove it. Okay? All right. Now, so Rabbeinu, this is what Rabbeinu Tam says. Therefore, we infer from that sugya that from something that's klipa is not shaykh, you don't have to remove it. Rivo is choylek on this. And he says, no, you need shishim keneged the potential klipa that you would have to take off. Just because you can't take it off doesn't mean that you don't have to account for it. you account for it. The Riva says you need Shishim, connected a clip on the liquid. Yeah, that's the Riva. The Tur writes that the Rambam and the Ri hold like Rabbeinu Tam. In other words, that you don't have to be worried about the klipa, the potential klipa in liquid that you would have had to remove. Primigodim explains the Riva in saying that the Riva said what he said only when we know that there's no Shishim Keneged Be'ein. You know, there's a problem. You don't have Shishim Keneged Be'ein, it's a problem. But if it was just a little bit, even the Riva would say it's bottle. I mean, when you don't have Shishim Keneged Be'ein, it's a problem. But if it's a very small amount, this is how the Pri Megadim explains the Riva, if it's a very small amount, like here, by Hadacha, it would not be a problem, supposedly. It's bottle b'miuto. What happens, however, if it's not hot into cold? What happens if it's roasted or if it's Melicha? Now, when we say roasting in Melicha, we have to be careful that we're talking about something which is not shomin. As we will see, we learned in Taaruvot, and as we will see in Hilchos Melicha, if we get to it, Mr. Hashem, that it makes a difference if something is fatty or not, and how far the Isser travels. So by Tzliya and by Melicha, the Taz and Shach both say that there is a mashahu that is being nivla through the process called roasting and Melicha. And because there is a mashu being nivla, you do have to take up today klipa by Tzliya and Melicha. This klipa is not bottled in shishi. Guess what? You cooked it, you take it out, you still have to cut off a little slice. It's still there. You can't get away with it. It's still there. There's no taruvas. In other words, the klipa is there in whatever it was absorbed. Cook, so what? Take it out, remove it.
It's not because the absorption that itself is not the issur. So the klipa is still there. It doesn't mean that the absorption in the still there. We don't know if the absorption in the klipa maybe it left and maybe not. But the klipa itself became an issur because of the absorption. So now I have to get rid of the klipa.
I have to get rid of the klipa. Yeah, that's right. Regardless of the fact that it was bashal or not, it's not bottle b'shishin. It's interesting. It's not bottle. Why should it be bottle? No, why not? I mean, it's just,
It doesn't. It's not mispashit.
It's not mispashit. Yeah.
Means.
Yeah. So that's by tzli melicha, but they say by regular bishul, it would be nisbatel. They're makel, because they make that assumption that connected a little bit that may have gotten absorbed. There's shishim, and it's gone.
Is that because of the bishul is always with water?
Yeah. But by tzli melicha, it's saying that there's a mamoshes that got absorbed, and it's not bottle. In other words, the klipa is me'ikar adin, and it's just, you can't say that it's bottle b'shim. You would have to remove it regardless. That's what they say. Shach and Taz say that only about tzli and melicha. Yeah.
If I remember, if you can, you should always remove the thing.
Yeah, that's what we're going to see later on. That's the machloikas. Yeah, if you can. What happens if you didn't? But yeah.
Question that just came up in my head: when you're doing this for the whole surface, or
we're only in a place of contact if you know it.
Yeah.
If you don't know it, then all around. Yeah. But if you know it, yes, it's enough only in the makom negi, as it's called. Rashba brings down a very similar scenario. But the evet was cooked, it's mutter. Why mistama? It says most likely a shishi. Can I get a little bit? Chochma Sodom, however, says something completely different. He says, you know why the whole thing is mutter? Because we're passing like the mechaber anyway. A cold dover she'i efshar likloif shari. Anything that you cannot be koilef, mekalef, is mutter. So he wants to. So the question right now, well, wait a minute. That's klipa, and here is a dacha. So we have to go one more step to try to figure out if the machlekes of Rabbeinu Tam and Riva applies everywhere, or maybe it only applies in the klipa. But here we're talking about a dacha. And I still am not sure I understand very well. There's a Yad Yehuda that says the opposite. He says that, well, actually, I do know. He says the opposite, that even according to the Man Da'oma, you don't need klipa, b'di'evet. By hadocha, it would be aser. Why? I think this is the way it's explained over there. By klipa, there's a sfek sveka. Sofek, if it was absorbed, And even if you say it was, maybe there's shish. By Hadocha, there's no svek sveka. There's only one suffix. If there is shishim or not. I think that's what he was trying to say. So he would be more machmir by Hadocha than by Klipa. Interesting. I didn't see too many say that. By Klipa, it appears to be that in many cases the Klipa, if the Klipa is me'ikar adinyan, well, it's a machlokes. It is a machlokes if you need the Klipa b'di'evet or not, what happens to it. But it appears to be that Klipa is more chomer than Hadocha. The Metzias is. But that's what the Yad Yehuda says.
The idea of Klipa itself is more chomer.
Yeah. So, but he said, but he says
telling you that you need to make a more of a difference, more of a tikkun.
Yeah. Anyway, the Pri Megadim says that the machlokes Rabbeinu Tam in the Rivah is also the same machlokes in Hadocha. Okay. I don't think everybody agrees with this Pri Megadim. I don't recall. Huh? The Pri Megadim says that. You remember that machlokes Rabbeinu Tam and Rivah? That's the Ikar machlokes. It applies in the same way it applies by Klipa. It applies by Hadocha over here. I don't recall 100%, but I think not everybody would agree with the Pri Megadim. Yeah. Okay. Let's just quickly go on to the next sieve. Interesting sieve. You have to be careful that when you're eating meat, you have meat on the table, that the meat should not touch the bread. If the meat touches the bread, you will not be able to eat it in gvina with cheese. Be careful that bread should not touch cheese. Then you would not be able to eat it with meat. Now, what's this doing over here? This halacha is following the halacha of Hadocha, right? Of situations where you may require Hadocha. So the Shach says, well, you have to be careful. Okay, I understand why you have to be careful. But what happens if it did touch? Can I do Hadocha to the bread? Would that be a solution? Shach says yes. Same thing with the Pri Chodesh, I think. Pri Megadim and the Pischei Tshuva over here bring down the Knesset Agdola. The Knesset Agdola asked, I think he asked here on the Shach, how could you say that? Hadocha on lechem? Since when can you do halacha on bread? In other words, he had a problem with applying Hadocha to bread. He says, how could you say Hadocha? If anything, you must say Greda. In other words, the application Hadocha does not fit with bread. So the Pischei Tshuva says, you know what it could be? It all depends what part of the bread it touched. If it's the hard part, the crust, or the soft part. No, you could do Hadocha from the outside if it's the crust. That's what he's saying. You would not be able to do Hadocha, or Hadocha wouldn't help you in the soft part of the bread. But you could do Greda, he says. You can rub it off well, if it touched. I mean, just imagine. This is not something far-fetched. You have bread touching cottage cheese or sour cream. It got there. It's smeared. What now? So we have an halacha. Guess what? This bread, you can no longer, if you touch cheese, you cannot eat it with meat. Even if you try to remove it a little bit, you may have to really be gored the whole thing. Now, for some reason, the Mechaber didn't give a solution here. He just says, be careful, because you're not going to be able to eat it with the opposite. That min. In other words, if you touch cheese, you won't be able to eat it with meat. If it's touched meat, you won't be able to eat it with milk. He doesn't offer the solution. That's what the Shach says. But wait a minute, that's only the way it is. But obviously, if you can somehow fix it by Greda, like they say here, or Hadocha, like he says, it should help.
What would be the new bread and anything else?
Because bread, eat both with milk, with meat.
Right.
Potatoes you don't?
So there is a special isser.
Bread is eaten a lot,
Bread is eaten a lot. I
It's
understand.
a staple.
The question is when
And incidentally,
Or is meant to a special case by itself?
No, it's not. It's not a special case in itself. It's only because it is eaten with meat and milk meals.
Therefore, there is a special issur on combining meat with bread or milk.
Anyway, let me jump. I'm going to jump, and you will understand all of this. I'm going to jump right now.
Before you jump, just the potatoes. They didn't know of potatoes until the United States was. The United States is the source.
I'm not
They
sure.
didn't have potatoes in Ireland?
Not until the 1500s.
Yeah, they had different. They may have not had the russet potato.
No,
They had all kinds of potatoes.
Yeah.
Potato is the bread from the earth.
Yeah,
Very nice. So potatoes were imported to Europe from here.
yeah. A lot of things were imported into Europe, even in that 16th century that they discovered here: corn, coffee, chocolate, all kinds of things. Anyway, they don't know what they were missing, huh?
No, so during the times of the Gemara, they wouldn't have had the potato problem with milk.
A potato, yeah. Anyway, so what I'm going to do right now is we're going to go back to the other dinim, side issues, but because the Mechaber right now is speaking about being careful with bread on the table, not to touch meat or cheese. Just be either or. These two ingredients don't touch, because then if you do, you'll have a problem eating it later with the meat or with the milk. So let me introduce you, if you haven't learned it yet, to another halacha that is later on in Basar בחלב. It's brought down in various places in the Gemara. Not everybody knows this halacha. It's a real halacha in Shuchan Aruch today, in the Kitzur even, that you're not allowed to break Melicha bread. You now, if you have a bread machine and you want to go to Ralph's and get yourself a recipe, they have good recipes. Many of them are dairy. You can't use it. You cannot make dairy bread. Neither can you make fleishike bread with the Shuman. Same thing. Why? We just learned something. That bread can be eaten with both. Bread is eaten with both. The Chachamim were concerned that you should not come to eat it with the other one. Mamish Basar b'chalav.
May I add the next?
However, there are two exceptions to this halacha. There is a way you can have the cake and eat it too, as they say. And that is if you make a small amount.
For one meal.
You can make if you make something small amount that you will for sure consume it in that meal. That's one heter. The second heter is if on what you are baking or making with the dough, you make a special heker, a shape that this is melachex. Yeah, of course, yeah.
They have, it's
Like
established.
and that's sambusak, the
it's
bureka things.
triangular,
Yeah.
milchik, it's,
Exactly.
square,
Whatever.
something like that.
Yeah. These would be the only exceptions to the rule. Now,
Why would you not be able to?
I guess you could. I
Do you want to make
I guess you could be creative. There may be other ways.
The
Yes.
halacha doesn't provide that.
That's the question.
Yeah. But maybe you're allowed to be creative if it's compatible with the halacha. Yeah.
But does it, with putting in a special dye, would it mevatel the need to give it a shape?
Maybe I think it can be mevatel, because it appears to be that the halacha allows for other forms of reminding you. Yeah. Because that's what's necessary here. Now, what does Rashi say about the problem here of ein loshin? You don't need dough with milk. So Rashi says on the words with the hergel avera. Rashi says shelo yochal basar imo. The hergel avera, in other words, you may come to a hergel avera, which means to eat the basar with it. And the same thing is the other way around, that you don't need the dough with the shuman of basar. Unless, of course, you provide some ways of remembering. Now, what's interesting about this halacha, it appears to be a separate halacha than what we're talking about here, right? Even though there's some similarity, comes along the Pri Megadim. The Pri Megadim is incredible. It's just his insight and the detail and his explanations, B'chlal, comes along the Pri Megadim over here and makes a chiddush. That this din that we just learned in Sif Gimel about being careful with our bread not to touch is very similar to the din in Siman Tzadik Zayin over there, where you don't bake kneaded dough with melachix. It's very similar. And therefore, he says, since it's very similar, over here, he wants to say that if the bread touched meat, eat it with meat.
Because it's this, sir.
He touched meat, and let me at least eat it with the meat. No, you can't even eat this bread with meat, because the idea here is similar to the over there. right? You may come to change, you may come to eat it with the wrong one. So he says, if you touched meat, you can't even eat it with meat. If you touch cheese, you can't even have it with the cheese.
But over there,
Right.
if it's quantity that you're allowed to have, like if it's a little piece
Well,
of
yeah, obviously,
now if it
yeah.
touches the cheese
Obviously,
here,
yeah.
it's not going to be the whole loaf that touches.
Yeah.
Normally we touch
Anyway, the
it
Pri
with
Megadim,
corner.
but that's what he's saying is a similar idea.
Yeah, yeah.
And therefore, he says, you don't have to lose hope. You can still eat it with the cheese or with the meat. How? Do greda. In other words, what I'm saying is that you can't if you didn't do anything. Because you may come, because there's a chashash, there's a problem similar to there. But you can still do greda, you can rub it off. Then you're okay. Or a dacha, Yeah.
How do you do the grade?
I would use I would use a knife. Knife is usually the best one for greda. Or cut it off. Then it's even better if it's possible to cut it off.
Well, that's not great. You cut it
Yeah.
off bad.
Yeah, right.
Because if you're going to cheese, the bread that came touch with cheese, to sit there and scrub it. So at what point will it become clear from any problem? Because you're using it, you can stick it in the earth.
No, the cheese knife is not a problem here. No, it's not a problem. The cheese knife is clean. You clean, the utensils are clean, it's okay. Everything is cold. The grader.
As you do
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
it's absorbing a little.
He's thinking of Dufta de Saki.
No, it's not
No, there's no dukkha de sakina. Grader, there's no dukkha de sakina. You're just rubbing it off. Yeah.
It will not go back. It's
Yeah.
on the edge of the knife now.
Yeah. Remember, it all depends on the bread. I agree with you. If it's on the soft part, that's what they were saying. A dacha appears to be a problem. How do you do a dacha to the soft part of the bread? Either you cut it off, right? I mean, if it would be, imagine you have a half a loaf of bread. Let's think for a moment. You have a half a loaf of bread. That's a lot of bread. And by mistake, somebody got a lot of cheese on the soft part, the one that's open. What are you going to do now? What I would do is, if you eat bread with both, I would just cut a slice off. I mean, how far did it go? Right?
What about a sandwich? It's for sure the cheese gets on the bread.
What kind, soft cheese? What kind of cheese?
Whatever cheese, the soft
Yeah.
cheese. I'm talking about. I'm making myself a cheese sandwich.
Yeah.
I have a slice of bread in front
Right.
of me. That slice of bread is. I put cream cheese. Now
Yeah.
it's touching.
Well, now that's for sure. Where you have a slice, a slice is forget it. That has become a slice of Melicha bread.
Right. So that's because it's a quantity that I can consume.
Oh, that of course. That's why you're allowed to have it.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
let's say, excuse me, if
It just says to be careful here that you shouldn't touch. But if you actually want to eat it together, then it's like you're saying, it's a small amount, and it's not a problem. Yeah.
let's say milk, and then
Yeah.
the food is the bread on the milk.
Right.
They are from the food to the bread,
No.
and then you cannot have that with the cheese, can you?
That's too much hummus. Zaya in the outside air,
Yeah.
As it is, it's a question in the oven. And outside, we don't have a problem. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not sure if the Pri Megadim says it or somebody else says it. If the bread is a small amount of bread that touched, he says you can be meyached it to what it touched. Like you were saying with a slice that you lechatchila put cream cheese on. Here, if it by mistake did touch cheese, and you want to be meyached it, okay, but I'm only going to eat it with the cheese, and it's a small piece of bread anyway, small, go ahead and do it. Or touch
cut it
meat,
off, or cut it off.
and it's a small piece of meat, bread, and you want to be meyached to this with the meat. You can do it because of that Allah that Ilan said before. If it's a small amount anyway, you're going to consume it in that one meal. So you can be meyached it to whatever it touched. Madani Shulchan, sounds familiar? The Sefer?
I've heard it, I've seen it, but I've
Yeah.
heard of it.
Yeah.
If you on a flake plate, can you or a dairy meat?
Well,
Dairy.
if the plate is clean and cold, why not? I mean, no problem. Yeah. He wants Daniel Shulchan does something interesting. He says, look at the Mechaber. The Mechaber didn't offer any solutions, right? He just says, be careful. If you read from his words, he wants to say that this din is different than the din of lash, the cholov, of making actually bread with milk. There, the Chachomim answered me'ikar adin, so you should not come and forget and eat it with basar. So me'ikar adin over there, it's also to do it. You may come easily to eat it with basar. He says, kan, all there was a negia, all there was, it touched, right? It's a very, very small point of contact. There's no problem that you're going to come to the Isser Torah here. In other words, why say that it's the same din as over there? Here, it's just a little bit of contact. You didn't actually knead the dough with the milk. So there's no chashash so much. Therefore, since we don't have so much, you still have to be careful. You still have to goyer. That yes. But don't tell me, he says on the Pri Megadim, that it's the same din. I hold, he says, that because this is a very small chashash, he just touched a little bit, here, I can eat this bread by itself.
Without meat in it.
Yeah, without meat. In other words, if you say that this is the same din as the other one, what did you say before?
I'm not even allowed to eat that bread.
I'm not even allowed to eat that bread with anything.
Even cheese.
Even by itself. Even by itself. Without greda. Because
No, we're talking about the lash. The greda will help.
No, but here, if the Pri Megadim says that it's the same din and I don't do greda, I'm not even allowed to eat the bread by itself anymore.
Right. Once you compare it to over there, but
Yeah.
over there you're not allowed.
Without greda, it touched, can't eat it. You're not allowed to do that. You're not right. You can't make bread with meat or bread with milk. Here you touched it. If you say it's the same din, I can't even eat it by itself without greda. He says, no, I don't think it's the same din. I should be able to eat it by itself because it's not it's only negia.
So that's
And he says, but how do I know the Mechaber says so? He says, look at the words. Tzorach lizar shelo yiga basar belechem. Shim yiga bo, aso le'oichlo. In gvina.
in Gvina, not Asula.
Yeah. But anyway,
Over there he would say Asula Lochla, not in Gvina.
what does he say? Aso le'ochlo in gvina.
Right.
Does it say aso le'ochlo by itself?
That's what I'm saying.
No.
Yeah.
So the Mechaber doesn't say this is a problem. It touched cheese. Okay, so eat it by itself.
Or with Gvina.
No, no, you can't eat it with gvina.
I'm talking about touched cheese. Your example was a touched cheese. You just said
Yeah.
touched cheese.
Right. Or don't eat it with the other one, right? But to eat it by itself, the Mechaber doesn't say that's aser. Right? So that's what he wants to say. But I saw others, I think it's in the Pesach Tshuva, I think so, it brings down right now it doesn't make a difference, who say that's lav davka, what he would say. There are others who may agree with the Pri Megadim because it appears to be that Mechaber is putting Siv Gimel right after Siv Beis, and not after Siv Aleph. So since he's putting Siv Gimel after Siv Beis, and Siv Beis talks about Hadacha, he seems to be saying that maybe, that's what would be required over here. In other words, a hadacha would be required if you did, and only then would you be able to eat it by itself. In other words, he wants to say that because of the order of this ifim, made the Mechaber just seems to be implying, if it did happen, you're going to have to make hadacha greda anyway. And then, of course, once you do that, you can eat it however you want to eat it. So it's not necessarily like the Madana Shulchan wants to say, but anyway, it's hard to figure out. The Mechaber is not very clear, but they're both pretty right. What happens, by the way, when you have to take off a klipa in grade? We may have mentioned it last time, but I'm just going to repeat it again. And it's Shabbos or Yontiv. Can you do it?
Right.
Or is it a tikkun mana?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's a tikkun.
The Mishnah Berurah seems to be saying, if I recall correctly, that it's a form of tikkun. No, it's a metakin, yeah. And he says you shouldn't do it on Shabbos. The Minchas Shabbos is matter. He says it's not a real metakin. It makes no difference. It's not a real metakin kli. Comes along the Pri Megadim to save the day again, and Pri Megadim says makes a chiluk. Says it all depends. If the klipa is meikar adin, then that you really need a klipa meikar adin, then it's nearer kemesaken. If it's only a chumrah, and there are places where the klipa is only a chumrah, he says it would be mutter to do.
Now, why would the klipa, since we're calling it klipa, be any word? Are you allowed to peel a peel?
Sure you can.
So why not peel
This is the tikkun. In order, the only way you could eat it is if you
because you can eat a saba walnuts.
Yeah, that's okay. You're allowed to.
You don't eat those walnuts.
No, but the shells is just, it's interfering with you getting to the food. It's like opening up a wrapper. It's like anything that is.
And here the Isers.
No, but here, but the Mishnah Berurah seems to be saying that it's a form of tikkun. Everybody agrees that it's not a real tikkun, but it's a form. It appears, it looks like it's a form of tikkun that you're repairing it. Like Trumas and Meisers, in order for me to eat this, I have to remove.
Right.
Or Hafrashas Chala too.
But this really converts the food you're eating.
Yeah.
Here, just removing something, the feeding is not being changed.
Yeah, like a peel. Yeah, that's what it's a machlokes. Yeah.
Can you say that?
He wants to say wherever the klipa is meikar adin necessary, then if it's a chumr like by nifsek kiluach in irui, you're pouring down, it's only a chumrah there, with the klipa that you have to take off from what that was on the bottom of the irui may only be a chumrah, then you would be able to do it. The klipa is not me'ikar adin. Like by Melicha, sometimes you have klipa me'ikar adin, but tzli.
Now,
Right. Or shalom nifsaka. Yeah.
now, if I'm talking about Melicha or
Yeah.
Tzli, the official here is a Rabbanan official.
Where?
By Melicha, for instance.
Right.
It's a Rabbanan bishul. It's not a Doraisa bishul. Bishul Doraisa is a proper bishul.
Yeah.
So if we're going to say that you're not allowed to eat this, it would be the Rabbanan not Doraisa. Doraisa, this is perfect. Doraisa, the only thing that the Torah Asr is something where milk and meat are cooked together.
Therefore.
And it has to be a proper bishul.
Right.
So under all circumstances, we're talking here about an Issa de Rabbanan, where we're talking about these.
That's correct.
Okay, so if it's an Issa de Rabbanan, the rice that I'm about to eat is perfectly kosher.
Yes.
So legabe Shabbos, if I'm going to satisfy an Issa de Rabbanan by removing something, this is called legabe Hilchas Shabbos Tikkun Mana. The rice I can eat it.
Yeah, it's not a real tikkun. Like
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not. They say קיהן. It's קיהן. I would agree with you that it's more of a Rabbanan. It looks like it appears so. Then you wouldn't want to do it on Shabbos. You do it after Shabbos.
But
Yeah,
again,
it's not a real tikkun mana. No. Yeah.
It's a Rabbanan.
Yeah.
But the Rabbanim, you will get Malchus for it.
Yeah.
No, that's not the only thing. The oraisa, right now I'm allowed to eat it as is.
Right.
So if I'm the oraisa allowed to eat it as is, and tikkun mana is a isser d'oraisa. So if I'm a d'oraisa, I'm allowed to eat it as is. How do I go into a category of an isser d'oraisa if I'm doing something that only satisfies a requirement d'oraisa?
Unless the klipa unless there was a real klipa necessary, I mean, ikar adin.
But me'ikra did. But me'ikra did. When do I have a situation where I cook milk with meat together?
So you're saying about basar b'chalav. What if it was not?
Basar b'chalav.
What if it's not basar b'chalav?
Well, we're talking right now basar b'chalav.
Yeah.
I'm talking
Okay.
only basar b'chalav.
All right.
Because that's our issue
So
here.
it's a complete bedrabana then.
The category are only the Rabbanim?
No, I'm saying that an isser, a tikkun mana, makebe patish is an isser d'oraisa.
It's one of the melachot. Yeah.
It's one of the 39 melachot.
Yeah.
No, but the oraisa, I'm allowed to eat this because it didn't cook together, the milk and the meat.
He's talking about. Remember when we spoke about basar b'chalav? The deraisa is only if it's real
So as
bishul.
far as the oraisa is concerned, since I'm allowed to eat it as is, there is no isser to eat it right now.
There's no issur deraisa. There's an issur
I'm
derabanan.
not doing a tikkun mana legabe,
Yeah.
an isser d'oraisa. The oraisa, it's permitted, so how can I be violating the tikkun mana
It's
which
not a
is isser d'oraisa?
right. Yeah, but it's not a real thing. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't call it the real malacha.
Right, so when
I
you're
don't-
saying you're not calling it
I don't think it's
you're agreeing with
it's
me.
indicative anywhere that anybody would say that this is a real malacha. But it appears like one. That's all.
So it'll be more Amaris Ayin?
Yeah. Or קיהן. Yeah. That's all. Yeah. Maybe.
It will be a Durabanan on the
Or
Durabanan.
drabana. Yeah. So that's why we have a machlokes. Some say it's not a real. It's not a real tikkun. But anyway, just to finish up, one more idea here. We're talking about. We spoke about putting things down on a keli that is usher for us to put it down. Chatchila. You may come to cooking it eventually. If it's not completely clean, and what you're putting in is moist or hot or whatever, depending if you learn like the Taz, there may be a problem, of course, that it may be picking something up. All right. There's a mechaber in Siman Kuf Chof Aleph that talks about Hagolah and Libun Kelim that says as follows. What happens if I had to be melaben a keli? What's an example? A frying pan. When it comes to Pesach, we're lenient with frying pans that you can do Hagolah to them. The only frying pans that pose a problem for Pesach are Teflon. Okay? For other reasons. As it is a frying pan, it's a shaila. Does it need libun or Hagolah? And some, of course, say it should at least have a libun kal. Libun kal means you don't have to torch it. You can put it into the oven on 500 and something degrees for sure. It will be sufficient. The problem is that if the handle is rubber, you can't put it into the oven. If you can remove it, yeah. But anyway, for Pesach, we're more lenient with what we do with a frying pan. If you buy a frying pan from a goy, we're not lenient. It requires libun. Okay? So, but it doesn't have to be a frying pan. Any keli that needs libun, the Mechaber says in Kuf Chof Aleph, if you did not do libun, then you did hagot to it. Okay? Interesting halacha. You cannot, at this moment, since you did not do it 100% right, you cannot use this keli with hot water, with heat. You only did hagolah, you didn't do libun. There still might be something in there. No, it's not surprising. He says, therefore, you cannot, in the meantime, use this keli with hot. Even if it's not hot a la eish.
No, it's a keli.
We're talking about use. You bought it from a guy, yeah? Right? You were supposed to do libin, you didn't do libin, you only did hagala. You cannot use it with heat, even if it's not heat shal yada eish. In other words, just heat. Comes along to the mechaber. Okay, I understand the mechaber. Comes along to Ramah. It says, but you can put something cold in there. Okay? Even lechatchila. Not on a regular basis, as we said, you cannot do this forever. But if you had to, let's say you're in the home of a goy, you're in a place where you have nothing, right? Right. Bederech arai, it's called. Incidentally, that you have no choice is called bedi'evet. Whenever you have no choice and you have to do it once, it's like a bedi'evet. So you are allowed to do lechatchila, cook, put something cold in that thing, lechatchila, but in a bedi'evet situation. In other words, the situation is a bedi'evet, but you obviously can put it in lechatchila, something cold, as long as you did hadocha and shifshuv heitev
Of the keli.
Of the keli. Okay, so what do we see from that halacha? From that halacha, we see that even though it's something cold, because the tikkun of the keli, which was supposed to do with libin, was not done, the iser is still partially there. The Ramah says in Achiname you have permission to use something cold, just like by us you have the permission. But remember, the same concept applies. You can only do so. Yes, it's cold. You still need hadocha. You still need shifshuv heitev. We're concerned it may not be completely clean. That's all. Okay? So even in that case where you did something already, there was a gala, but it's incomplete. And you want to put something tzoinen, which is only tzoinen. Yes? You can do it with hadocha, and you can only do it with derech harai. So we explained this, that derech harai is important, that when you do something like that, it doesn't mean you can always do it. Go ahead and take care of that keli. Otherwise you'll forget one day.
Why
That you
hadocha?
go and do libun again. Also because we're choishes that
The hadacha of the keli.
of the keli.
So there should be food grains
Yeah,
on the keli.
right. Just to be choishes that there's nothing in there. Now, okay, so we brought this halacha now. Why did I bring this halacha? Just to show you how this is similar to ours, and you still need a requirement, and you still are choishes, that he may eventually cook in it, so we don't let him do it on a regular basis, just on a one-time basis. Okay. But all of this is with metal. Now we're going into kli cheres. We'll finish with this. What's the din about kli? Metal I understand. Metal I can do hagala, I can do libun, adocha, great. What about cheres? Nobody seems to be mentioning cheres over here.
Cheres you can't do.
As you know, cheres is a problem because cheres we can't kasher. There is a way, by the way, to kasher cheres. In some cases, use it for a year. There's all kinds of situations where cheres can be possibly used. If it was always used cold, for sure. Was by Ashkenazim, especially used with china or with glass for Pesach, where they Milo v'iroi, thank you. 3 days in a row. Fill it up with water, right? Empty it, fill it, empty it.
You have to let it stand.
Or hagala several times. What?
You have to let it.
You have to let it stand.
24 hours.
24 hours. That's called Milo. Anyway, so there are different ideas of what to do with cheres, or things that are comparable to cheres like glass. But anyway, based on there's a ran in the Gemara in Chulin, that since klei cheres cannot become kosher through agala, it has no takana le'olam.
Like Rabbi Basar bechalv we're talking about.
Oh no, in general, klei cheres treif.
Taaruvot.
Close.
Klei cheres. In קיהן, he says, since it has no takana, he says you can never put tzoinen at all, never, into kli cheres. This is the ran. You can never put cold into tzoinen, tzoinen into kli cheres, because maybe you will end up using it with chamin. So that's what he said. The ran says about kli cheres. Pri Chodor says, this is what the Rif and the Rambam and others say. No, I'm sorry, the Chodor says that's what the Rif and the Rambam also would hold. In other words, with the Kli Cheres, all that we've learned today would not, and last time would not apply to Kli Cheres. You would not be able to use the Lechatchila. Even if it's Tzoyin, we're talking about even if it's Tzoyin, you have no heter to use it. It's a Kli Cheres of a Goy, don't use it. Alright. Chavas Das says, Kli Cheres is just like any other Keli. And he has a makor from the Rashba, who's mechalik, that by sakin, there was an inyan of hadocha because of duchka de sakina, that something had to be done to the sakin that was maybe a little bit dirty. But if you're dealing with a pot that's cold, a pot that's hopefully clean, what's the difference? What it's made out of? You're going to be using it with something cold. Why should it make a difference? If it's sitting in a piece of Mexican pottery that was used to make tamales, I don't know. Right? But it's cold now. What's the difference? That's what the Chavas Da'ah says. Based on the Ramah in Kuf Chof Aleph, that talks about Kli Cheres over there, he says that if the Kli Cheres was used for cold, to store, I don't know, all kinds of herrings, I don't know, cold stuff.
Oh, herring.
Yeah, we're going to see that in a moment. Yeah, if it was used for cold, since you can't do Hagala to it to begin with, it's called a B'di'evet, and it's enough to be Melicha v'shtifa. You can go ahead and clean it very, very well, thoroughly, Melicha v'shtifa, and then you can put something tzoinen in there.
They used to put wine.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And some say you're even allowed to put hot stuff, spicy stuff into that Kli Cheres. It wouldn't make a difference because it was all
spicy, not hot.
Spicy, yeah. Spicy because it was always used with cold. Primigodam is machmir, that you should not put anything dry, but if it's hot. In a Kli Isser, that even though it was absorbed only through cold, if the way it absorbed happens through Kvisha or Melicha, as Moshe was also. With wine, all these things, if it's sat there a long time, it's a form of Kvisha or Melicha, so the Pri Megadim says, it would be also to put something hot. Now, he says hot.
Hot meaning temperature or spicy?
No, temperature, even if it's dry. Now, why would it make a difference hot now? It was always used with cold. It was kovash. Okay, so what? It appears that he's trying to say that something that is hot, sitting in the pot, could be maflit, that which was absorbed through kovash. Otherwise, I don't understand it. What difference should it make? But it doesn't appear that there's any chumras for putting soin in it, just because it was kovash. Again, if it was only used with cold, the Ramah seems to be saying that if you do, if it was always used with soinen, and you do shtifa to it, since you can't do hagala to it, now that's what he says about since you can't do hagala to it, it's called b'di'evet. Now, but that is only that it was always used with cold, because then we don't have the problem of you may cook in it. So this used to happen because the goyim used to put their stuff in there. So if you know for sure they only put cold stuff into it.
I have a question.
Let me ask you a quick question. A steward that serves you coffee in a mug, can you have it?
I wouldn't.
Why not?
The CRC prohibits because.
Why?
I don't coffee. Sorry, Starbucks.
No. The coffee is kosher. It has badats on it.
No, because of the thermos they use. Because it's washed together with the thermos.
Oh, the thermos?
Yeah, because it's washed together within the dishwasher.
Okay, that could be another problem. What about the mug? The reason why the mug is okay, why it's okay, because those mugs are only used for coffee. They don't make tray soup in those mugs. Oh, okay, so that's another problem. That's another issue that has to be looked at if in fact that's a problem, if that happens. Today that's not really an issue anymore. It used to be in the olden days, if you flew in the 70s, that's how you were served coffee. Today they serve you in a, paper cup, styrofoam. Yeah. But you see, in other words, depending how something is used. If something is always used with sonin, and you know that for a fact, Ramah says that with shtifa, since you cannot do hagala anyway to it, you cannot. It's like a b'di'evet. You can't fix it. So therefore, if you clean it very, very well, there's no reason why you should be machmir not to put something soinen, into it. What happens? Even if you were to cook, it's obviously the Pri Megadim wants to say that hot for some reason is a problem if it absorbs through kavush. Okay. Through kavush maybe it's different, but only if it's hot. I don't think that soinen appears to be a problem even according to the Pri Megadim. Yeah, how something absorbed, as long as it was soinen, appears to be the same. If you're putting something soinen, it absorbs through kavush. So Kli Cheres is a little bit unique in that it is problematic, but the Ramah says, when you have no other choice, it's like a b'di'evet. And as long as you know it was always used as cold, that's what's going to make the difference. If you're allowed to put something that's cold now, but only cold. After, you've cleaned it very well. Okay, we'll stop it.